let's talk about the ACT science section. If you've ever looked at it and felt like your brain was about to just fizzle out, you are definitely not alone. But here's the thing. It's less about knowing science and way more about thinking like a detective. Today, we're going to crack that code.
For so many of us, this part of the test is just a huge source of anxiety, right? It feels like this totally unpredictable beast packed with these super dense passages about topics you've maybe never even heard of. But the real secret? The beast isn't actually a science beast at all. Taming it just takes a simple but really powerful shift in how you look at the test. And this is that mindset shift. We're moving away from trying to remember every fact from biology class, and instead, we're focusing on how to analyze evidence. This test isn't about what you've memorized. It's about looking at charts, figuring out variables, and drawing conclusions using only the info they give you. Your mission is to think like a detective, not like a textbook. Okay, so let's jump right into the heart of the challenge. Because once you understand what this test actually is, it's going to completely change your approach.
And here it is. This is the whole secret. It is not a science knowledge test, it's a science reasoning test. The ACT is basically using all these charts and experiments to see how well you can read data and use logic when you're under pressure. You know, trying to prep by memorizing facts is kind of like training for a marathon by just reading a book about running. You're practicing the wrong skill. So if it's a reasoning test, our first job is to become an expert data detective. The passages are basically your case files, and believe me, they are filled with all the clues you need to solve every single question.
These data passages, they might look super intimidating. I get it, but you gotta start thinking of them as your best friend on this test. The core tasks are all about things like reading tables, spotting trends, and maybe even predicting what comes next. All the answers are literally hidden right there in the data. You just need the right tools to find them. So here's your basic toolkit. First, you've got to be able to look at any chart or graph and just understand what it's telling you. Simple as that. Second, you have to spot the trends. Is a value going up? Is it going down? Hitting a peak? And finally, sometimes you're going to be asked to predict what happens next, to kind of fill in the blanks. You're not making anything up. You're just reading the story the data is telling you.
All right, let's move on to the next skill, which builds on this idea. It's about understanding the structure of the experiments themselves. This is about looking past the raw data to see how it was even collected in the first place. If the data is the evidence, well, the experiment is the story of how that evidence was discovered. That means you need to understand the whole setup, the hypothesis, what they were testing, and even where things might have gone wrong. Your job is to break down the plot of the story. What did the scientists change, and what did they measure? And that brings us to the two most important characters in any experiment story. It all comes down to cause and effect. The cause is the independent variable. That's the one thing the scientist decides to change. The effect is the dependent variable. That's the result they measure to see what happened. Seriously, if you can spot this cause and effect relationship, it's like having a superpower on this test. And beyond just cause and effect, there are a few other key things to look for. You've got your controlled variables. Those are the things that are kept exactly the same to make sure it's a fair comparison. You'll also need to figure out the main idea, or the hypothesis. And sometimes you'll even have to look for flaws in how they did the experiment. These are all the little details that build the full story. Okay, so we know how to break down the passages. Now let's talk about the questions you're actually going to be answering. And the good news is, they also fall into some really predictable patterns. You're basically going to face three fundamental types of passages: data representation, research summaries, and conflicting viewpoints. Each one tests your reasoning skills in a slightly different way. Think of them like three different kinds of puzzles you need to solve. Just knowing what kind of case you're trying to solve is half the battle. So you have data representation, which is just pure evidence analysis. Just read the charts. Then there's research summaries, where you're comparing the methods and results of a couple different experiments. And finally, conflicting viewpoints, where you have to break down the arguments in a scientific debate. Each one uses those core skills we've already covered. All right, we've broken down the test, the passages, and the questions. Now, let's put it all together into a winning game plan that you can actually use on test day. Look, having a clear strategy is what separates the people who panic from the people who are confident. It's about using specific tactics like reading the question first, focusing on the figures, and just being smart with your time. It's all about working efficiently without wasting a single precious second.
So here it is, a simple but really powerful 4-step game plan. Step 1, go straight to the question so you know what you're looking for. Step 2, hunt for clues in the figures. The titles and labels on the axes are your roadmap. Step 3, and this is so important, trust the data. The answer is in the passage, not in your memory from science class. And finally, step 4, manage your time. If a question feels too hard, make your best guess and move on. Don't let one tough question sink your whole score.
Seriously, if you take away only one single thing from all this, let it be this. The ACT science test is not a test of what you know, it is a test of how you think. Every single answer you need is right there in front of you. Your only job is to find it.
At the end of the day, you're not studying a textbook. You're solving a puzzle. And that single shift in perspective, it makes all the difference in the world.
With this new mindset and a clear strategy, the ACT science section stops being this big, scary mystery. It just becomes a case that's waiting for you to solve it. You've got the tools. The clues are all there. Now go be the data detective.